Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the April 13th Transit TAC. Let's go ahead and start the meeting with introductions. I will just read down the list of participants that I see online. I'm Dana Teray with SCTA, Brian Albee, Sonoma County Transit, Jared Hall, Petaluma Transit, Ada with Marin Transit, David Davenport, Golden Gate Transit, David Ripperda, SCTA, Jacob Brown, Golden Gate Transit, James Cameron, SCTA. Sorry, it's skipping around on me. Maria RC, Sonoma County Transit, Rachel Eade, Santa Rosa City Bus, Ross Clendenden, SCTA, Sean Sosa, Santa Rosa City Bus. And did I miss anyone? All right, great. Well, let's move on down the agenda. The next item is public comment. I do not see any public on the call. And I do see Emily Betts from SMART join us as well. And Matt Wilcox from Santa Rosa City Bus. But seeing no public on the call, we'll go ahead and move on to approval of the meeting notes. At our last meeting on March 9th, we skipped over approval of the notes. So apologies about that. We have two sets of meeting notes to review and approve today. The meeting notes from February 9th and the notes from March 9th. Does anyone have any comments or corrections on those meeting notes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Great, thanks, Brian and David. Moving along, item number 4 is the MTC Complete Streets Checklist Transit Sign-Off Process. This is really just a heads up. Some of you may have been following kind of the new progress for the Complete Streets checklist for OBAG 3. Part of this process is, well, the new policy and checklist includes review with transit agencies that are in the project, that serve the project area, for any projects that have MTC discretion or are seeking MTC support and need to fill out a Complete Streets checklist. So essentially, project sponsors are supposed to do the research to figure out if transit is surveying their project area, and reach out to all of the transit operators that serve that area, and ask for a letter of sign off from the transit agencies. The actual Complete Streets checklist is supposed to be coming out and online by May 1st. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up that is coming, and that project sponsors should be reaching out to you. If, you know, and I also wanted to open it up and ask if it would be helpful to facilitate that process through the transit TAC. And, you know, if not, I think that's fine as well, but I would like to hear from you if you think that coordination, especially in areas that may be served by more than one transit operator, if it may be helpful to bring that through this committee. So I'll just open it up if anybody has any thoughts on that.
I think that would be helpful. I think the one challenge could be with some of the deadlines, whether the timing lines up, but I think, you know, particularly if there's a project that has an impact on, you know, or interacts with multiple transit operators, it wouldn't hurt to bring it through. I just don't know if, you know, if it'll really be feasible.
Sure. I think that, we may be able to, since this committee does meet every month, that's helpful. The May meeting, I am guessing that we're not going to have the checklist complete by the May Transit TAC meeting. But the June one may not be too late. So I think, David, if you want to weigh in on that, or we could talk about it more closely as we develop the process. And if an alternative may be just to do it by email and make sure that everybody's on board.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out the timeline for our 2021 funding program. It doesn't quite work out because NBC won't release, as Dave mentioned, the complete streets checklist finalized until May. And we want to try to take our recommendations through the CD pack in May, but the other committees are probably going to follow in June and then a final board adoption in September. So we may have a chance to do a couple of different iterations and bring it to the TTAC maybe in June or July before it goes back to the TTAC in July, or excuse me, to the CD pack in July. So I think we're still working on it, but we definitely want your input on the projects.
Great. Any other thoughts or comments on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and say we're having a dry run on this, if you will, in El Cerrito, which, as you may know, has many different transit operators there. And even though it doesn't sound like this new process has a lot of teeth to it, I think it's good because, in this particular case, the city of El Cerrito reached out to AC Transit a while ago and was somewhat dismissive of their serious concerns about the project. And then very late in the game, they basically then reached out to the other half dozen operators that serve El Cerrito del Norte Bar Station. And we shared those same concerns, and they're sort of kind of back behind the drawing board trying to come up with some answers for us that probably should have been provided right out of the gate. So this will be good to help prevent those types of situations, even if it's really just a, well, thanks for telling us we don't like it. And then the city says, oh, well, it's an extra layer in there for things like this that seem to fall through the cracks sometimes. So it's been an interesting experience in El Cerrito. So I'm glad to see MTC moving in the direction of at least having something on the checklist for us, because it seems like in some cases, and we've seen this in San Francisco on a project level basis for us, where this, something that benefits pedestrians and bicycles actually actively makes public transit service worse. And, we're all in support of improving bicycle and pedestrian facilities, but at some point, the rate of return for public transit gets diminished to a point where people choose to drive anyway, which is really the opposite of what everyone wants.
Thanks, David, for that perspective. It does sound like the collaborative discussion would be useful, especially in areas where there's more than one transit operator.
Definitely. And we're happy to do what we did in El Cerrito, which is to, we can meet on an ad hoc basis. That seems to work well. So even if we can't do it in this forum, this is something that's probably high on everyone's list. So we definitely can make room in our schedules. I would, speaking for Golden Gate, and I assume the other operators feel the same way.
I would agree with the ad hoc approach, kind of as needed. I don't know if the Transit TAC meeting just once a month would work with the timelines.
All right, thank you. Well, we'll definitely be looking at the schedule more closely, and we will make some decisions based off of that. All right. The next item is the Transportation Fund for Clean Air County Program Manager fiscal year 22-23 proposed program of projects. There is a staff report and list of proposed projects in your agenda packet. I'll just go ahead and share my screen so I can talk through it. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
All right, great. All right, so as always, we when we do the call for projects, we have a off the top amount for Santa Rosa Transit, Sonoma County Transit, and Petaluma Transit, and then have a competitive portion that is open to the jurisdictions within the air district or projects within the air district. And the competitive portion priority is given to the smaller cities that don't run transit. However, none of those cities did end up applying. So the applications that we received were from the 3 transit bus transit agencies that are named in the distribution, as well as so that's for an electric bus for Sonoma County Transit, an electric bus for Santa Rosa City Bus, and the continued transit marketing program for Petaluma Transit. We also received an application from the city of Santa Rosa for a bike parking program, and a similar program from a similar project from the city of Petaluma for bike parking program. So both of those programs would be purchasing bike racks and distributing them throughout the cities and making them available to businesses that request bike parking at their locations. They would be publicly accessible and mostly in the public right of way. SCTA also submitted a project application for a commute program. And this would be expanding on the Ride Amigos platform that we have set up for the Commute 37 pilot project, which is providing rideshare incentives for people carpooling on Highway 37. We're working on that project in collaboration with the 3 other North Bay county transportation agencies. And so we've set up this Ride Amigos platform and would like to use TFCA funding to expand it, expand the use of this platform and incentives for transit, bicycling commutes, and carpooling throughout the county. So that's a kind of brief summary on the projects that were submitted. The original submittal, with the original submittals, we had, there was a $14,491 left over. And all of the projects that were originally submitted, the cost effectiveness was very close to the threshold. The thresholds of cost effectiveness are in this column here. And the only project that had room to, in their cost effectiveness, was Sonoma County Transit's electric bus purchase. So the staff recommendation here is to put that additional $14,000 into Sonoma County Transit's project because they can absorb that cost effectiveness for that electric bus purchase. So if we don't program all of the funds, we lose them. If we program all the funds and a project comes in under budget or is canceled, the funding would be rolled over into the next fiscal year, but we don't get any benefit from not programming the funds. So that is a staff recommendation, would be to add that to Sonoma County Transit's project. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And so overall, the process for this is that it's reviewed by this group today, and then would go to the TAC TAC committee later this month, and then to our board in May. So with that, I'll open up for questions, and I will be looking for a motion on this as well.
Hi, this is Emily. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, Chris and I are in the car headed back from an in-person meeting, so I don't have my video on. I just had a question about the Ride Amigos. What kind of incentives are you building into the program? Just curious, really.
Yeah, so the way that it would work is that essentially people would log their trips, whether they're carpool, transit, bicycle trips, their commute trips, and build up points. And there would be a point system where after a certain number of trips you take, you have a certain number of points, you could cash it in for gift cards. This model is basically how the other county transportation authorities in the North Bay, as well as San Mateo, have been doing their programs. And most of them are using they have a Tango built into their Ride Amigos platform, and that's essentially like a gift card company that so once you have a certain number of points, you can cash in your points for a gift card, and they're generally in the amount of $25. Some of them often do other promotions, maybe during like rideshare week or bike to work month, where you can, on top of your regular points, you could be entered into drawings for bigger incentives. Or there could also be strategies where you can save up your points to be entered into a drawing for a larger incentive as well.
All right, interesting. Thank you.
Sure. And I'll just also note that the Ride Amigos platform has the emergency ride home program built into the platform. So once you're registered on the Ride Amigos platform, you can redeem up to your 4 allocated emergency ride homes per year through the platform, and you could see it all on your dashboard on the platform.
I was just curious, since this is only our second application that we're applying it towards an electric bus, if anybody has seen over the years with regard to the cost effectiveness. I noticed on that chart, we're all pretty much close to the max we could be with it. Is BAAMQD getting tighter on their calculators? Is that or has it just been pretty much the same each year? I'm not too sure. Again, only having 2 applications, if it's changed much over the years.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. They did, and maybe Brian remembers exactly when it was, they did make a major change to the cost effectiveness form for the heavy duty vehicles. And I believe it was 3 years ago. And
Yeah.
that did make it, that did kind of make it a little more difficult to meet the cost effectiveness. Is that your recollection on timing, Brian? It was about 3 years ago.
Yeah, and you know what they did prior to that, they put a limit back on CNG buses. They put a limit of $150,000 or $200,000 per bus, and maybe that's or I guess in this case, maybe 300,000. Maybe that's what we should push for, is just put a cap, and so it doesn't apply anymore.
For our application, some of the metrics too are based upon past ridership, and of course that is down a bit. Ours was a marketing one. So with that being suppressed, that also is one of the major factors in the formulation. So that's one of the components of it too, I would say.
Yes, that's correct for the transit marketing.
But it's a goal of the air district to get all the operators assistance for buying electric vehicles. So really, the cost effectiveness shouldn't really apply as long as it's being spent for that purpose.
I agree with that. It's strange that we would be that close to the threshold with an electric bus. Like, what better could they
Right.
fund to meet these needs than electric buses? You know?
Or for at least for a 10-year period, or as we transition into this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the age of the bus that you're replacing also has a very large factor. The older the bus that you're replacing, the better your cost effectiveness is. So as you have fewer older buses to replace, the more difficult it will be to fund electric bus projects. We can definitely bring some of this feedback back to the air district and let them know that we're getting close on the cost effectiveness, and feel like if the air district really wants to support this transition, they should take a look at the policies and the guidelines for this fund category.
I was going to say, it kind of seems like just with Brian's application and ours that, there almost seems to be, like Brian said, that dollar limit. If 225 is kind of the extent of what they expect to reach the cost effectiveness, maybe just making it, 225 for a bus replacement. And if you have more money coming to you, then at least, you have to do a different project instead of going through the motions of going through the work and trying to figure it out and then realizing you have to do it after you've done all this work.
Right.
Fortunately, we seem to have no shortage of older buses needing replacement. So to Dana's point, I think we're good there.
Yeah, I think the 2010s seem to be fine. As they and newer than that, we could run into challenges as with the current guidelines and formulas. All right. Any other questions about the projects or the proposed program?
We appreciate the additional $14,000. Any little bit helps.
All right. And somebody like to make a motion on this?
I'll move to approve the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Great. Thank you. All right. Moving along. The next item is transit integration updates. So we kind of consolidated the local transit integration discussion and regional transit integration discussion on this agenda. So I'll just start with some updates for the local effort. We have posted a job opening for the transit planner project manager for phase 2 of the transit integration. And there's a link to that in the agenda packet. This is an opening that it'll be open until fulfilled, and we will do our first round of reviews the first week of May. So if you know anyone who might be interested in this position, please share it, and we will keep you all updated as this moves forward. And otherwise, we have been having some discussion on some coordinated fare-free days with the local bus operators, and ongoing discussions on the paratransit application, single application form. We haven't had an ad hoc meeting since we last met. but expect to be scheduling one in May. And I'll just see if any of the, if Jared, Rachel, or Brian have anything to add on the local effort, or Suzanne. All right. And then I'll just open up to the whole group about anything that they would like to discuss having to do with the regional effort on the around the Blue Ribbon Task Force Transit Action Plan, or anything about any state legislation that's kind of related. I'll just open it up to any discussion on that.
Well, I had a question. I know both the network manager work and legislation, probably including the SB 917, were on the agenda for the small operators group yesterday, which I wasn't able to attend. So I'm sorry to do this, but I'm just curious if anyone was on that meeting and if there was anything of note to report with developments on either of those items. I know there was a set of revisions that came out on SB 917 that looked like an improvement to me, but didn't know if there was any additional.
Yeah, Rachel, this is Suzanne. Rebecca Long was invited to the meeting, but she couldn't make it. And so she's going to be there next week to talk about the revision. So they didn't really spend much time on that.
Okay, great.
And your other question was on the network manager stuff.
Yeah, it was on the agenda, so I didn't know if there was anything of note. I don't imagine too much has happened since we last discussed, but
they talked about, wait, Brian, were you on the call?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. They talked about the existing conditions sort of situation and whether or not we as small operators should highlight to the committee and to the consultant the existing sort of connectivity to the regional network and like what the existing conditions are from the small operator perspective. There wasn't, at least it wasn't clear to me if there was a specific manner in which to do that, other than to maybe send the information to the chair of the group.
Okay.
And the information being things like Santa Rosa City Bus connects to the smart rail line X number of times a day, or aligns with Golden Gate Transit's routes, or, you know, something. I think that was the theory behind it, but there wasn't a uniform sort of format that they came up with. And then the other part was there was just a brief discussion about the ad hoc of the network manager committee that's made a smaller group of 3 operators and 3 of the advocates, and that they are starting to meet.
What's the role?
The small operator meeting, Rachel, yesterday? Was that the one you asked about? Yeah, pretty similar. Nothing that I heard new regarding the network management beyond what's been discussed. I know some of the pieces out there right now are kind of, I think they're still finalizing the exact structure of this advisory committee relative to the executive committee, or whatever they call it in that regard, and kind of what the responsibilities would be for each one. And of course, the involvement still of kind of local governing bodies and the decision-making process with it. Nothing new that I heard yesterday that I hadn't previously heard with the structure of it in those regards.
All right, thanks both of you for giving us those updates. Appreciate it.
All right. Anything else on this item? All right. Next on the agenda is transit fare updates. So, Steve.
I did have one question. Sorry to be late on that. I've noticed that SMART is now running about an hour and 6 minutes between stops. And it seems that Santa Rosa City Bus has adapted its schedules to fit with that. but it's seems to present some difficulties, and I'm wondering how serious they are, and whether other operators have adapted to that.
There's
Oh,
Emily.
I was just gonna jump in and say, Steve, our alignment right now is somewhat accidental. I'm going to be honest. I mean, we're in sort of an interim service phase right now because we're still not quite fully recovered from our staffing shortage related issues. So, I think as we continue to restore service, it's probably going to be a bit of a moving target for us. So we're kind of still in that process. So, Matt, I see Matt's on the call. I don't know how much Matt would want to weigh in from Santa Rosa about any challenges there, and obviously I see Emily on the call. But yeah, I don't want to take too much credit for our our alignment, because right now we're just trying to get buses back on the street. But anyway, I'll let Matt chime in if he needs to.
Steve, I missed the beginning of what you said, something about smart while I was switching computers. Could you repeat that?
The headway on SMART is something like an hour and 6 minutes, rather than every hour there's a train.
Right.
And I'm wondering how the bus operators have been able to adapt their schedules so that the buses actually meet the trains. During the listening session last week, somebody mentioned that they arrive at the station about a minute after the bus has left in Petaluma. That may have been a particular train at a particular time, but I'm just curious how easy it is for the bus operators to meet trains when they're not running every hour. They're running every hour and 6 minutes between trains.
I'm not going to speak for the bus operators, but I'll just give some background for SMART. I mean, we obviously realize it's a huge obstacle to the bus operators to provide consistent headways, meeting a non-clock face, non-regular schedule. And it's like one of the greatest goals of SMART scheduling is to shave off those minutes to get to every half an hour or every hour SMART headway so that it can be met by local operators. But as you probably know, Steve, the biggest constraint is the single track system, right? And so the whole schedule has to be timed to meet those trains at the sidings. And so unless a bunch of money manifests to add additional sidings or double track the system, it's really hard to get that schedule down. And you may recall, if you were around in 2017, that the original schedule advertised every half an hour service, and then the trains just couldn't meet it because of this. And so then you have a different problem, right, where people are missing their connections. So, we've been talking about this. I think we're going to have to differentiate in the North Bay between services that are more SMART oriented and can not adhere to a clock face, versus the ones that happen to get people to the train at those key moments at the right times. And maybe we can prioritize certain connections at commute hours, right? And then maybe other times of day they don't. So hope that's helpful.
Speaking for Petaluma, I would say it's a bit tricky. Yeah, it's always more difficult when it's kind of an unusual, frequency, like 66 minutes instead of an hour. But with us in particular, I'm pretty sure our ridership loads, and correct me if this is wrong, are pretty evenly split from Petaluma going north and going south. So with us, we don't have a clear differentiator of what our prioritization is with connections. And so especially on routes that are maybe only running every 30 minutes or 60 minutes, we do what we can to try to meet those connections and balance them. But it's harder when you have buses running with that frequency. Really, the way to solve it is to have buses running more frequently if you can, that run every 10 minutes. And then it doesn't really matter how much if you meet the connection or if you dismiss it. But with us, it's always a balance of, do we want to hit the northbound trains, the southbound trains? What's the priority? We can usually do one, we can't do the other. So we try to balance it out given all those considerations, but it's never a perfect scenario, unfortunately.
And I'll just tag on.
More buses.
I agree.
For city bus, it's kind of the same. Our meeting the schedule right now is completely accidental. I'll be completely truthful. So one of those happy accidents. I mean, meeting the trains is ideal, but it's hard, just in the sense of that we have a lot of obligations to other parts of our system. So it's a balancing act between, are we getting kids to school? Are we meeting smart trains? And given our current frequency, we can't do both if we're looking at those peak commute times. In the morning, it's harder. In the afternoon, it's a little easier because the commute does shift slightly. But yeah, those are our considerations when it comes to scheduling. And right now, depending on the route, we don't have the usual frequency that we usually have on the system, given our driver shortage.
So I guess the next question is, does this program to integrate have enough money to build a bunch more sidings for SMART?
That would be nice.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, I would just add for the county system, we've included the smart train times on several of our schedules now, the 10, 11, 14, the 44, 48, the 62, and the 30 and the 40 that go over to Sonoma. They're coordinated together, so every 30 transfers to a 40 and reverse. So we're doing what we can. Most of the transfers occur at the Katati station, where the buses stop at the station. Downtown Santa Rosa, it's really too far away from the station. We don't have service going to the Guerneville station now. It may come back in a year or so. But I mean, we're doing what we can, and really with the county system, we don't have consistent headways. So the irregular times that SMART arrives, it really is okay. We're aiming more for the trip than the consistent headway.
That's really great that you've started adding those times to your schedule. I'm sure that's the sort of thing that you're talking about in the joint marketing committee work that you're doing. And that's just, that public information is so important for people to even realize that there's a connection there to the different services. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, and I'll just add, we're not quite stabilized on our service side, as I mentioned, but, certainly as we're hopeful that this summer, that might be slightly optimistic, the way things are going, but that we can get back this summer to a more stable staffing level and increase some of the remaining services that are still on reduced frequency, and then get back to our more standard service changes. And that would be a time where we could begin to take the same approach. So, again, I sort of feel like we're still a work in progress over here, getting back to normal, but I think that's definitely the direction we're heading in.
And I'll just add on the Golden Gate side of things, it's easy to meet an irregular headway with a service that also has an irregular headway. So the weekend, the Larkspur Ferry schedule is pretty well coordinated with SMART. So we do what we can, like other operators. We have other obligations, especially for us. SMART is a tertiary connection to our bus system, but we do make the effort at San Rafael Transit Center, at least in the peak direction, especially in the morning, to provide a chance of actually making that connection. And we'll be rolling out some schedule changes in June, it looks like, between SMART and Golden Gate. Hopefully that'll be a little bit smoother in the morning. And that's really the most we can do. More money for more sidings sounds like a great solution to me. If we can get those frequencies to 30 or 60 minutes, that would be wonderful. But we just have to find that money, I guess.
Hey, David, I was curious, do you happen to know what the most common SMART Golden Gate connections are to and from where they occur? I was just curious, kind of demand-wise, what that would be.
Pre-pandemic, we had some information, and really, there were a couple stronger connections at San Rafael Transit Center to the East Bay, especially in the off-peak hours, and then to San Francisco, kind of commute-oriented service. And so that commute-oriented service, which is now Route 132, is that route that in June we'll make some improvements to the timing to facilitate that transfer. With the East Bay connection, honestly, at this point, I don't know how well Smart and Golden Gate meet. That service is really timed so that you have an efficient transfer to and from Route 101. That way, at least there's a fail-safe, especially in the off-peak hours, which is where that was a dominant connection. The Route 580 is hourly in the off-peak, and Route 101 is also hourly. So it's very easy to kind of make that work. And then Smart's sort of thrown on top of that. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's so-so.
Yeah, I do have some data on that. It's
yeah.
interesting. I get it from MTC every month. We had 100, this is transfers from Smart to Golden Gate. We had 150 people to the 580. So that was our biggest transfer. This is not comparing to the ferry, just buses.
Right, yeah.
And then the second biggest is to the 101. And then the 150, 130, 132. The 132 is actually only 37 people in the month. So I'm hoping that the tweak that we're making is going to improve that. But yeah, the biggest transfer is the 580 to the East Bay.
Okay.
And the transfer is not bad. I've been looking at it. It's reasonable
Okay.
transfer time. I made sure to preserve that one. So
yeah. So I guess the takeaway then is since COVID, that the 580 connection is still strong.
Yeah, it is.
But I guess it's not surprising that some of that commute connection has kind of tapered off.
Yeah, and I will actually add that I don't have the number here, but our ferry connection is higher, and it's very high on the weekends. A lot of tourism doing that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Right. All right. Well, let's move along to transit fares. Maybe those who are looking at the free day coming up could chime in and give us an update on that.
Great. Us, Santa Rosa City Bus and Petaluma are all going to be fare free on Saturday the 23rd, and it was mainly because of the downtown Santa Rosa Earth Day celebration, but then later it became known that Petaluma's Butter and Eggs Parade celebration is that day. Since then, Cloverdale Citrus Fair is on Saturday the 23rd, and the Sebastopol Parade is on the 23rd. So I don't know how well our service is going to perform with all these obstacles. So maybe it's good that it's free. But it's Saturday, the August 20 or April 23rd is a big day in the county. The county board is expected to approve this very late on the 19th. And Maria in our office here has done some marketing, joint marketing with the other operators. Marin is also in on this as well. So yeah, and I guess the item we have is we have 5 or 6 free days that the operators in consultation with SCTA will select. This is our first. We haven't determined the other remaining days yet. It's a good thing though.
Thanks, Brian, for that overview. All right, are there other fare related items anybody wants to bring up?
Yeah, just a couple things. One other thing is Earth Day is actually the day prior to that too. That was one of the considerations. That's on Friday the 22nd. And then I always want to remind people that Petaluma's free veteran and active duty military program has been running since February. So please help spread the word about that. If you want any materials, let me know, and I'm happy to send those out. We've talked with some of the veterans groups in Sonoma County. They have a veterans council that meets monthly up in Santa Rosa. I found out that we recently attended and talked to. So any help spread the word on that, we would greatly appreciate.
And I just was going to add that we're going to be working with the city schools and the other districts in Santa Rosa to administer a survey for the youth and families participating in our free fares program, a K-12 program, and the spring before school's out. And so I hopefully will get some good information about the impacts of that programs. We look at ways to extend it or make it permanent, hopefully. At least that's our desire. So look forward to sharing that feedback with this group when we have it.
I also wanted to add on Brian's note. So yes, Marine Transit Board also approved that we will be offering that free fare free day in observation of Earth Day on the 23rd of April. In terms of, and then we have been in touch with the marketing folks on those other 3 agencies that are going to be offering, and very good discussion and good collaboration on that end. In terms of other fare related items, so we did, as I mentioned in the last meeting, we did and the ADA and senior free fare promo that was running for 6 months at the end of March. So we resumed collection of the fare April 1st. We have distributed 3 transit passes to the families of the low-income students, like short of 1,000 passes were distributed. So we are in the process of evaluating the usage, the activation, places they travel. So that's a work undergoing, and I'm hoping to report back once we have an evaluation completed. And then our board also in the same meeting past August, they approved also offering free student, basically free fare to students during the summer weeks. And we haven't decided yet on those weeks to come, but I will again probably reach out to other operators that might have the same or related fare promotion that maybe we can kind of promote across the North Bay. And that's it.
Thank you. All right. If there are no other fare related items, we can move on to operator updates. Let's start with Golden Gate Transit.
Sure. So I think I mentioned this at the previous meeting, but our new Route 114 started on March 21st. So it's nice to actually add some service out there into the world. We're still suffering from an operator shortage like everyone else. So we're looking at what we can restructure for our June service change in order to provide some additional service through the core of our system. So, Transbay across the Golden Gate Bridge. So we'll be making some routing changes in June so that we can provide schedule enhancements in our system to really cater to where people are riding our buses the most. In terms of service to Sonoma County, we don't expect there to be any changes in June except for some schedule enhancements in terms of running time and that sort of thing. We will be bringing back some extra service on Route 101, but only on the southern portion of the route where the demand really seems to be at the moment. So we're hoping to see some more pickup in ridership from Sonoma County, but it's not quite where we need to add service yet. But speaking of ridership, for the month of March, our average daily ridership is up about 14% compared to the month of February. So, with some return to work in San Francisco, we're really finally starting to see a return of some of the riders that we used to carry. So, this is something that was probably, 6 or 9 months behind all of the local operators. But it's nice to see our average daily ridership up that much in 1 month. So hopefully we continue on that track. Despite our operator shortage, we do still have available capacity on pretty much all of our service. So we have seats to fill before we really have to start sweating adding service. So hopefully by September, we'll be in a better position to actually add service without having to scale back in certain areas to get it done. Also, as of April 4th, we did make a series of ferry schedule changes, including on the Larkspur ferry. So that weekend schedule connection is definitely improved with Smart, because Smart made some changes as well. And hopefully for June, we'll see some ferry service enhancements as well, but we're kind of taking a wait and see approach for now. I think that's it for Golden Gate.
I have a couple of questions, David. You said you were making some schedule changes to the 101, the southern point at some point. When is that?
Yeah, so for the June sign up, so starting that second week of the month, when our schedules usually change, there will be some additional peak service on Route 101, but that'll only be between San Rafael and San Francisco. So the good news is for people taking SMART, there will be some additional service out there. So, you know, if somebody misses a 101 or a 130 or a 150, there will be another bus in the mix. And the 101 is definitely the preferred option to San Francisco between the 101, 130, and 150. So it should be pretty enticing. So hopefully we'll get some additional riders, you know, that if they're coming from further north, they take SMART down and take the 101 to the city.
Yeah, that's great. We've gotten complaints about that 101 connection. So can you send me the proposed additional service?
Yeah, I'll make a note. I don't think there'll be another week or two before scheduling has everything together, but
okay.
And I'll get confirmation to you at that time as well about the Route 132 timing changes in the morning.
And then you were talking about 14% increase. Are you seeing that on the ferries as well, or is that just bus?
Ferry ridership is up. I don't have the number in front of me, but the overall numbers are not necessarily as meaningful because Angel Island is now in the mix, and that doesn't really provide a Marin side, land side connection. But I guess for next meeting, I'll see if I can get some more useful information. Ridership is up a little bit on ferry, but not yet to a level where we would be thinking of adding more service to Larkspur or Sausalito or Tiburon for that matter.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks. How about an update from Sonoma County Transit?
Got a couple things as we're putting together some scheduled changes for June 12th, our next common scheduled date. Ridership 2 is up, not a whole lot, but it's heading up. Paratransit is up a higher percent than the fixed route, and we have, I think I mentioned before, we bought some electronic signs that provided the next bus information. Those are going to go up in Cloverdale, Healdsburg, Sonoma Plaza, and probably out at the airport, just to try them out, as our next bus is waiting upgrade for its 3G service, which has been canceled, but they'll work with static signs and they'll update based on schedule information. So we're anxious to get them out, just see how they work and how the public accepts them. They're somewhat compromised because of the scheduled information versus real time, but they will switch to real time when we get back with next bus, probably June or July. Other than that, the free fare day, Maria's been working with the other operators on marketing that, and I think that's about it. Unless Maria, you have something.
No, I think it was a great collaboration, quick and easy. So I look forward to doing more of them in the future.
Good.
Hey, Brian, are those I don't want to call them e-ink signs, but I think the vendor reached out to us as well. And I think that was the same product, like Vix or something like that.
Vix.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're going to be out here next month sometime, kind of making a.
Yeah, I think they're stopping at Smart, right?
Yeah, they're coming to Smart, and they want you all to come. They said they're bringing pastries. So you should come for an in-person meeting and have some pastries and look at these signs that Brian's buying. Okay.
Right.
All right, we're all going to come for pastries. About an update from Petaluma Transit.
Yeah, I think we covered some of the other ones already, like the fair stuff. We're working on a bus shelter artwork project, like I mentioned before. We had that out to the public now, where people can apply to that, submit concepts of what the artwork would look like, and then it'll be reviewed by the Petaluma Art Committee to install that. We've been doing decent amount of work with bike share to get that all queued up. We have our bike share subcommittee meeting tonight, to where that'll be the last of the input I think we get for this round. We've done outreach to businesses near the hubs, and they've been generally supportive of the concept. So everything's looking good there. So hopefully tonight remains kind of the final piece of that, but everyone's getting very excited about that program. So it's good news. We also are dealing with staff shortage, working on that, looking to add more drivers. Our planner one and senior planner positions are now posted as well. So let me know if you're interested in the link for that. I'll send that around. And I also had a good intern candidate that I think I emailed to a number of you too, in case you're looking for someone in that regard as well. And that's about it for us. So ridership wise, paratransit is pretty much flat for us over the past month or two. Fixed route continues to go up quite a bit. For January, it was up 97% compared to the prior year, although still down below pre-COVID numbers.
Great, thanks, Jared. And San Rosa City Bus, you wanna go next?
Sure. So we implemented our post-Omicron service restoration on March 20th. So that was great. So we got a bunch more service restored. We're still at 81% of our pre-pandemic revenue hours. We were up at about 85% in August. So we didn't get to go quite back to our August level. We need to get some more drivers in and trained before we can do that. But that was great to actually get a reasonable service back out on the street following all of our reductions. And I don't anticipate any changes in June. Matt is probably breathing a sigh of relief. He's done like, I don't know, dozens of run cuts in the last year, but hopefully for August, we'll be able to step up. That's our goal, to do another increase. So, but we're gonna hold steady for a bit now. Our electric buses are finally hitting the production line next week. They're due to be delivered the first week of August. So we're really excited about that and gearing up. And we've got a letter of intent in for another 5 buses for next spring. So to begin production next spring. So that's exciting as well. And then just thinking ahead, we're trying to get back to some of the events we used to do. So we are gonna have a bus in the Pride Parade, Sonoma County Pride Parade this year, as we have in the past. It's a lot of fun. So if anybody else wants to join us, they put us at the end of the parade, you know how they do, but we decorate the bus with, you know, feather boas and bubbles and have a big Ride with Pride banner. So if anyone wants to get in on that, please join us June 4th, Saturday, June 4th. I believe that's all I've got, unless Sean or Matt have anything to add.
I will mention we finally have a full admin staff. We just got a new senior admin assistant who started on Monday with training. So we're super happy to be fully admin staffed. At least we're still chomping at the bit for operators, and then since the last meeting, we were notified of the award of our 5339 application. So that's going to help us out with our expansion of our phase 2 charger electrification infrastructure and getting some more of our buses replaced. So yeah, those are the 2 things I got.
I can give a ridership update for us. So March has been our highest ridership month to date, at about 93,000 riders. So that's pretty exciting. That's a 32% increase over last year in March. And then going back to before the pandemic, that's still comparing March to March 2019 to this March, we're still down 38%. But you know, we're creeping back up there much like everybody else. So that's the good news, and hopefully we can keep the momentum going.
Hey, Rachel, remind me, were those Proterra?
Yep.
Okay, what's your estimated build time of those, out of curiosity?
The time frame that they'll be built in?
Yeah.
Well, they're supposed to hit the line next week, and they're supposed to be delivered first week of August.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see, right? But so far everything's on track, and we'll just see how we proceed through the process.
I think they mentioned Napa's are just ahead of ours.
All right, thanks. How about an update from SMART next?
Okay, ridership's also up on SMART. It's up 18% average weekday ridership March over February. So that's good. And April's been really even stronger so far. We are restoring Sunday service, yay, on May 1st. So just a couple weeks away. It's going to be the same schedule as Saturdays. So 12 trips per day. Oh, thank you, Rachel, for that little, I love the excitement. Yeah, it's great. I think it's really reflecting some of this post-pandemic ridership trends that our Saturday service has been so strong. The 12 trips is higher than what we ever offered pre-pandemic. And I think there's even more demand than that, actually. And then in mid-June, we are also looking to restore some service. I don't have a schedule ready yet for distribution, and not fully back to 38 trips, but maybe something like 34, 35 trips a day. Let's see, we are in the midst of 4 listening session meetings. Hopefully you've seen them advertised. So they're happening Wednesday evening, every Wednesday in April, and they are on 4 themes: ridership, pathways, extensions, and freight. We had a pretty good turnout for our ridership meeting last week. Tonight is pathways. And you're also probably saw the survey going around. It's not really a survey. It's more like a digital version of the listening session. There's some essay questions in there if you want to go in there and sort of write out to your heart's content what you think SMART should be doing. But it's part of a visioning exercise that Eddie Cummins is doing as the new GM, and also because SMART never really had a vision statement or goals in place to guide the investment. So I think it's really good. It's really exciting for SMART, and it's a good chance to hear from the public. So that's happening. See if I have anything else on my list. That's it. And congratulations on your 5339. That's really cool.
I told Rachel I didn't want to apply at first, and fortunately there was a little bit of pushback on that.
That's how it's been on our 5339 awards. It's the less we want to apply and the less we think we're going to have any chance, where the more successful we are. It happens every time. So anyway, we've been really fortunate. And thank you, Sean.
I'm never going to want to apply for grants, and apparently I'll win them all.
Congratulations, Sean. Well done.
Great.
I do have one more very important announcement. This is in honor of Yuri, who's not at this meeting, so he can't say this, but tomorrow evening is the transit, what's the name of it? Some transit mobility
oriented Bohemians.
You know what I'm trying to say, right? This name that Yuri gave the group that I can never remember.
It's the mob.
Happening tomorrow night. You all should come, have a drink or a sandwich at Brewster's Beer Garden at 5 p.m. Okay, you're all invited. See you there.
Thanks, Emily. I was wondering if you had anything you want to share about the white paper about SMART on the 37.
What happened?
Sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that had been distributed yet. I haven't been part of that distribution conversation. Has it been sent to SCTA now?
I'll defer to David on that.
Yeah, we're aware of it. So Bill has been working with us to schedule it with some of our Highway 37 meetings, but I don't think probably this group hasn't heard about it if you want to talk about it a little bit.
Great. So, SMART received some funding as part of a TIRCP grant to do network integration to the east and to the north. And part of that is looking at improvements to Highway 37. And as you all know, there are so many different projects and committees working on Highway 37, and we've been part of those conversations. There's an existing rail line in operation for freight service that roughly parallels Highway 37. And part of the conversation is looking at how do we take advantage of this existing infrastructure as the state and the region look at sinking money into improving Highway 37. How do we make sure there's provision for bus transit and rail transit for the long term? So SMART recently had a white paper done to just look at high level engineering options. How can rail be integrated into the different roadway configurations that are being examined? And yeah, it's good. It came out with some really interesting and I think exciting recommendations on how trying to integrate rail and road can actually have environmental benefits. It's such an environmentally sensitive area, and the embankments that exist for the roadway and for the rail are really detrimental. And so lifting it all up together, holds a lot of promise. So maybe that's just a teaser for the white paper at this point, but it is forthcoming, I think, as soon as we can get it out of the door. But again, I'm not sure what the timeline is on that. Suzanne may know better than I do.
It was presented at the SMART board meeting. So
okay. Yeah, it was, but I just didn't know if the actual paper had been sent to you yet. I don't know yet.
Actually, I don't know that we've gotten, I don't know. I have not gotten it directly, but I assume I assume it's on your website somewhere, but maybe that was a rash assumption on my part.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think the only copy we have is one that was in your board packet. So I don't know if there was any changes made from the draft to the final.
No, I wasn't even sure whether that was in the board packet. Sorry. But no, I'm glad it was. I think it needs to be distributed. So.
Thank you. Steve.
Yeah, SMART was sort of dragging its feet, I think, with the prior general manager about concerns that going to the east would disturb people in the north who wanted to make sure that SMART got to Cloverdale. But I think the reaction to this has been quite positive, and Melanie seems to be right behind it. So Melanie Bagby, who represents Cloverdale. So I think this is a good move, and I hope we can see activity, particularly from the rail people at Caltrans, who have sort of been excluded from the current effort thus far. So Friends of SMART feels very positive about this.
Great, thanks for that, Steve. Yeah, you're right. I think that there's it's an interesting tension between those two, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive, and I think that they serve different markets, and it's really a different beast, honestly. So they don't have to be in competition with each other.
Well, so I'm just going to offer my 2 cents on that because I kind of disagree. You can't spend billions of dollars in one direction and hundreds of millions in another when you don't have any of those millions to start. So like, it seems to me SMART needs to make a decision about prioritization at some point. They're not mutually exclusive, but you can't do them all at once. So I'm, the heading east version is going to be added complexity because there are 2 more counties involved, at least one other county with Solano, but really Napa should probably be included. At least Napa's on the SMART board technically. So I don't know. I think it's great to feel good about a white paper, but people actually need to make decisions about how to prioritize things. And that's not been happening, frankly, from the board on this stuff. So I look forward to the further discussions that get to that issue.
Mhm. No, yeah, I think you're right about the prioritizing, and that's part of what we've been trying to drive with these listening sessions, and why there's one on extension specifically is to sort of sort through some of this. I think, you know, if you'd asked 3 years ago if there was interest in going east, it wouldn't have even been on the radar. But I think what's happening is that there's pressure coming from the state to SMART, right? The state's been saying, this is happening. We're addressing the Highway 37 corridor, and there's an existing rail line here, and are you in or are you out? I mean, they've been coming to us asking for plans. They asked us to do this white paper. And I mean, my guess would be that if anything ever happens to the east, it's a different type of, it's a different funding source. It's a different political, what are the words I'm looking for? It's
could
not
be a
like we're
different
looking
operating structure, perhaps, Emily. It
Yeah,
could be
it's
more like an inner city rail operator.
Yeah, and it's not that we're it's not that we're certainly looking to pay for this out of local sales tax funds. You know what I mean? I mean, this would be a whole separate project and a whole separate funding structure for SMART. So it's really not, the primary mission is still to go to Cloverdale. Let me say that. This was not part of the long-term SMART plan, and is sort of, it's a new element that we need to deal with. So yeah, I don't know if that helps at all, but.
A quick question on this. I know both extensions ranked towards the bottom for Plan Bay Area 2050. That's not to say that they shouldn't be built, but is the state also looking at, you know, Capital Corridor or San Joaquin Joint Powers or anybody else for the eastern extension, or is it because the majority of the line is within SMART's jurisdiction that they're looking to you, or is that, you know, something that's still a ways off from being considered?
No, that's a great point, and we've been discussing that, right? It doesn't need to be SMART running the line, right? It could be Capital Corridor. Yeah, it could be, and we just had that conversation yesterday. And yeah, SMART in no way is trying to extend its empire, right? It's just this issue of public infrastructure currently in operation. Something needs to happen with the rail. So what is it going to be? And should we be having this conversation all at the same time? Right.
Right. I like to think of at Golden Gate where, you know, we run service across the Richmond Bridge, even though that's not within the realm of our responsibilities, but, you know, MTC needed somebody to do it. And we were, you know, positioned such that we were the ones that ended up doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that might be the case for SMART. And certainly in the Golden Gate example, you know, that's funded by MTC. It's not funded by the bridge district. So even though to the public it looks like we're doing both, in reality, one of them is being funded by a completely different source.
Right. Yeah.
Steve, did you have another question, or was your hand still up from earlier? All right. That was
Sorry about that.
That's all right. All right. Marin Transit, would you like to give an update?
Sure. So starting with ridership, we do continue to see a steady growth in ridership. Overall, we are still down nearly 30% when we are comparing that with the pre-COVID. We do see, as other agencies, we also continue to see more recovery on the fixed route. We are at about 80% compared to pre-COVID ridership. But then the demand response services, they continue to kind of being steady at 50% compared to pre-COVID. In terms of other updates, starting with the Muirwoods shuttle, so on Memorial Day weekend in May, we'll be resuming the weekday service on Muirwoods shuttle, and then we also will be resuming the service from Sausalito and Marine City to that park. As well, we're working with Golden Gate Ferry to test a new stop for Millwood Shuttle to shift from Pohono parking lot to Larkspur Landing during the weekends and holidays. We're going to be taking this item to our board in May. And once that gets approved, and that will be a new stop that will be starting to test as a pilot. In terms of upcoming service changes, so there are some major construction going to be happening in Mill Valley, and so that will impact one of our routes, Route 17. That will be a kind of a long-term construction, but starting this Monday, we will be having some detours on Route 17 in terms of longer-term service changes. For the upcoming June sign-up, we're considering to have service changes on 4 routes, routes 36, route 17, 71, and 61. So some of them involve some realignment, some involve some cutting late night weekend trips, and then route 61, which is our stagecoach route. And we're gonna be going back to our seasonal schedules and also cancel the 61M that's serve Mill Valley Depot on weekends. Other updates, so we will be having a ribbon cutting event for the grand opening of the Marine Access Operational Facility, and that will be happening on May 4th. And lastly, we also have a position available for an operations manager. So it would be great if you could share with people who might be interested to apply. And that's it.
Thanks, Ina. All right. Does anybody have any other business comments or announcements to make?
Yeah, I could give an update on TDA funds for the third quarter. We got a report last week from the county auditor that the quarter was up 16.5% over the same quarter last year. So that was a good report. We upped our fiscal year 22 coordinated claim projection to 30,000 or 30,500,000. I think we're going to come about 30,700,000. So another strong year TDA wise. Good news.
You have the latest version of that you can send around, Brian?
Yeah, I'll send you the spreadsheet.
All right, thanks so much. Great news indeed.
Great. Anyone else?
Sorry, I just want to ask, did anybody else get anything involved with the Energize fast track thing that just opened up a couple of weeks ago for charging infrastructure? Okay, that was just a question. Email popped up here and that reminded me of it. Thanks.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you all. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.